So a brand new Armored Core 6 update has actually finally arrived, patch 1.05. Now the main part of the patch has just brought upon ranked PvP, which is extremely cool. Now there also has been some balancing changes alongside the game as well. Now the assault rifles, machine guns, they've just been buffed, which is very nice because typically the linear rifles and the Gatling guns just kind of just outclasses these. The bazookas actually have been nerfed as well, which I guess kind of puts them more in line with the grenade launchers because that is typically just where there's the better option in general. The 66 LRA laser rifle, the plasma rifle, and the coral shield have actually all been nerfed, and a bunch of back weapons in general have been buffed to their tracking because a lot of them just tend to not be viable, so this is actually a very nice change. There also have been a bunch of just random frame part tweaks here and there. The biggest change being that the Fortalezas, the wheelchair, that actually has received a health nerf, but actually has been increased in terms of its mobility, so it's actually a little bit more faster now. And there has been a plethora of just bug fixes all over the place. I'm not going to read every single one of these. I'm just going to put them on screen so you guys can actually go check them out. But there actually has been some new weapons and a whole brand new frame set that has been added to the game, which we're just going to talk about right now. Let's get right into it. Now, the first weapon I want to talk about is the Atache, which is a heavy machine gun, which is a brand new archetype of weapon in this game. Now, it is going to be very similar to a machine gun. It's just going to be like the slower version, somewhat in between the assault rifle and a machine gun in terms of its rate of fire. It is actually twice as slow compared to the Changchen. Now, typically speaking, I actually still prefer the faster rate of fire machine guns because it does end up resulting in more DPS. But one thing that the Atache actually does get is actually have basically the exact same magazine for like half the rate of fire. So you actually can fire this for a lot longer without having to reload. And being that it actually still is a pretty decent rate of fire, it's actually going to be a pretty easy weapon to use still. Now, the next weapon we have here is going to be the PFAU 6060, which is actually a pulse missile launcher, which is actually a new weapon in this game again. Now, this weapon stats isn't really anything too crazy with its like attack power or direct hit adjustment. But one thing that it actually does have is actually a pretty cool attack that actually has some like nice tracking projectile. They actually can fire twice before reloading. But the coolest thing about it is going to be its charged heavy attack, or its charge attack in general, which look how fast it actually does charge. Basically in like less than a second, and when you let go, does twice as much damage, twice as much impact. And as you saw, the projectile just like goes extremely fast, travels a lot faster. Now the tracking of this thing isn't going to be the greatest thing in the world. Sometimes like projectiles can just like miss, but it actually is still going to be pretty decent at longer distances if you actually want to try and hit enemies that are actually moving, which is actually going to be pretty decent. Now, getting into the back unit weapons, we actually have a Gatling cannon, which is actually very similar to a Gatling gun like the Huben, which is going to be like the only Gatling gun in the game. But this is actually going to be on your back unit. So, which is actually pretty cool because normally you don't have many like primary based options on your back weapon. Now, the difference being between this one and the Gatling gun, the Huben, is actually not going to be as good as you think. The Huben is actually still going to be the better option because as you can see here, the Huben still gets that 25 attack power and impact, gets 215 direct hit adjustment, and it has a rate of fire of 20, which looking at the Xiaowei actually gets less impact and less attack power. Basically gets the exact same in terms of direct hit adjustment and actually gets a slower rate of fire as well. So the Huben can actually just out damage it a lot more. And this thing is actually also heavier as well. Now, the good thing about having a Gatling gun on your back unit is that one, you can actually have like 4 Gatling guns if you actually want to use it with the Huben as well. But the main thing is that you actually have a primary option on your back unit to free up your primary weapons. So if you actually want to use things like shotguns or grenade launchers or bazookas, being they're not going to really be like primary sorts of damage that you can like constantly attack over and over again, having something like a Gatling cannon is actually going to be pretty decent because normally you'd only have to use like things like laser cannons if you wanted to have something that actually can constantly do damage while you're reloading your main guns. Which, speaking of which, there actually is a brand new laser cannon as well in the VE60 LCB. Now, this one is actually going to be very similar to the 60 LCS. I actually will prefer this one a bit more. This one's going to be probably your PvP based option because it is end up getting more damage, more impact, gets more charge attack power, and the rate of fire isn't actually that much different. 0.5 to 0.7 isn't actually that big of a difference. But the 60 LCS is actually still going to have its use because one, it is going to be lighter, and it actually has a lot more rounds as well, almost twice the amount. So this one's going to be much more viable in missions and things like that. This one you will end up running out of ammo straight away. But if you did want to stick with those charge attack types of builds, then the triple laser cannon, the 60 LCA, is probably going to be the best option despite it being like very, very heavy. So I don't really like to use it that much, but it still is pretty decent. But the 60 LCB is definitely a nice addition to the game. Now, getting into the new frame sets, the Lamajiro, I don't know how to say that, but actually it does look kind of clean. It is very sleek looking, and that is because that it is extremely light. It is definitely the lightest armor set in the entire game. So that means that it's going to be very squishy. So your defenses are not going to be that good. As you can see, the helmet stats are pretty poor. You only have high stat in the system recovery, which I guess is decent. The core is actually going to be the most interesting part about this though, because this one's going to be the most energy efficient core in the entire game, because you have very high generator output adjustment and supply adjustment, which basically means your energy output in general and going to be your recovery speed. Now, as for your arms, it's actually going to be pretty balanced stats. It's not too bad. You have some decent melee specialization and firearm specialization. But the coolest thing about this update is probably going to be the brand new legs. These bad boys actually have the highest jump height compared to all the other tetrapod legs. And this thing just like looks super cool as well. It's actually going to be the most fluid moving. And as you can see with the awesome looking new glide animation, look how cool that looks. Normally like the tetrapod legs like extend out like a spider. This one actually looks like a cool hover ship. So not only does it look really cool, but like it actually feels very sleek and fast with its cool quick boosts. I don't know, it's just going to be like a very fast paced type of quad leg right now. So I think this is going to be just another meta option in terms of the PvP. I don't really care much in terms of using like quad leg builds in the missions, but it still is going to be pretty decent to have. But yeah, pretty nice change overall in terms of just the added new armor sets and the new weapons. Now, actually, we'll be playing a bunch of the ranked PvP when it actually does drop. Unfortunately, the servers are still down at the moment. They actually will be up pretty soon. So actually, we'll be streaming that as well. So yeah, definitely follow me on Twitch for that. But yeah, that's pretty much just the new update. Let me know what your thoughts are. But yeah, if you haven't played Armored Core in a while, definitely jump back into it, because like it's just a new excuse to play Armored Core. It's a fantastic game. It just won Action Game of the Year as well. It's just phenomenal. Jump back into it. You're gonna have a great time. Anyway, catch you guys in the next one. Bye.